Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Science Dispatch podcast. My name is Cameron English, your host as always. Very excited to be here, joined by Dr. Chuck Dinnerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. Chuck, it is wonderful to see you. How are you?
It's beautiful seeing you too. We're past the Ides of March, but we are definitely in the winds of April here in the maritime areas of Long Island, and it's very reminiscent of February, and I'm not liking it.
Not liking it in your old age? Your old bones are getting a little too much for springtime? Is that what's happening?
Yes, I've had the heating is back on. I'm thinking of turning on the fireplace.
Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully that turns around. It's bright and sunny out here, so it's take your kids to the park weather and play t-ball with my son weather, which is always good.
I'm formally jealous then.
Yes. Well, it'll turn around. Pretty soon it'll be 1,000 degrees here, and you'll be like, oh, well, it's just sunny here, so there you go.
I guess, there is an advantage in knowing that this is temporary and will turn into spring versus this is temporary and will become winter. So,
yes, indeed. This too shall pass. There you go, everyone. There's your happy takeaway from this episode. We do have a story here. I want to say this is like a greatest hits style article for us, Chuck, because we're talking about organic agriculture. This is meat and potatoes for ACSH. This is by our colleague, Dr. Henry Miller, and Dr. Kathleen Heffron, who I believe is a microbiologist at a really big school that escapes me right now. But she's a big deal. She knows what she's talking about when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Right.
So let me read this very brief introduction and then take it away here, Dr. Dinnerstein. So
okay.
They write, organic agriculture is wasteful of land and water, and its products are prone to microbial contamination. It offers no advantages except to the grifters in its supply chain. And so there we go. Dr. Miller, subtle as always. What do you make of this, Chuck? What's going on here?
Well, it's complicated, as always. Everything's going to be complicated. So I went through the article, and I think that they try to make a few points about organic foods, organic farming. They begin by pointing out that in a lot of ways, it's I'm not sure I'm using the correct word now. It's the vibe that's key here, and that it's a return to nature and natural things and what could be wrong or what could go wrong with being more natural. And that's always, I think, been true of the organic market, and including animals within that, as well as plants. The whole sense of an organic chicken as compared to, I guess, an inorganic or factory-raised chicken gives everybody kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling. In any case, the first point that they make is that organic foods tend to have a higher incidence of contamination than, let's call it, factory farm foods. And it's not because the food is organic, but because of the attendant processes involved in harvesting any foodstuff. And it very well may be that a lot of the contamination, they talk about hepatitis, which is frequently due to fecal matter getting into the food, may be related to the economics of farming, and that you have to have crews doing a large part of the harvesting by hand. So that opens up the possibility of contamination. The other contaminant they talk about is mycotoxins from fungi, and that's a development again from the process of organic farming rather than food itself, and the fact that they do not rely on the same pesticides that are used by factory farms that are not as effective against fungi. The second point they make, and this has become a whole cottage industry, is that there's actually no agreed upon definition of organic or natural. So that leaves a lot of room for various certification. And they make an interesting point that organic foods that are imported into the countries, for instance, berries, are not necessarily certified in the same ways as U.S. food. So what's organic in, Uruguay may not be organic here in the U.S. They also, again, return to the thing that's come up multiple times in the past, is that the yield per acre is not as great on an organic farm as on a factory farm. And when they do all the comparative studies, it would take up, the entire land mass of the planet to feed everybody organically, or, some such concern. And then the last points they get to is the fact that organic farming does not mean that pesticides are not used. It means that the pesticides are more natural rather than synthetic. Again, getting into that natural synthetic argument. I mean, to be real honest about things, plants which are by nature stationary have developed a lot of very strong poisons and defense mechanisms to keep from being eaten. So plant-based pesticides can be very toxic. And then the last point that they return to is, again, the point that we've talked about a lot, whether GMOs are in some way different than the standard means of hybridization that we've used for the last several centuries. And then that covers the ballpark.
So this is one of those situations where, as usual, as you said at the top, there isn't a clear answer here, because the most obvious solution, if you care about no other considerations, is, well, we'll just ban these products. You're just not allowed to sell these if there's a risk you're going to give someone E. coli. And I think in one of these outbreaks, they say 31 people died in 2011 or something.
Yes.
So that's not nothing. I mean, it's not a world war, but that's, you go to the grocery store to buy produce and you end up dead. That's,
it's problematic.
Right. Problematic, as to use a popular word. We would like to avoid that. So I think they say here, bottom line, if you care about price, quality, safety, or benefit to the environment, you're better off avoiding organic products, and the U.S. government should cease promoting them. So first, do you agree with that? Is it enough? Is it not enough? You're the physician. What do you say here?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think this is going to come down to a physician argument. I think that we're in for a real treat in the next several months as the Make America Healthy movement comes into opposition from the agricultural forces in the country. And, I think this whole organic fight is going to become very interestingly tied up in the discussions that Secretary Kennedy is having about food as medicine and ending chronic illness, and the USDA now being on board in terms of rewriting the health guidelines. I really don't have a problem with organic food. If people want to buy it, that's good. It's a niche market. It will never, ever become the way that we feed the population that's currently on the planet. Do I think that there are processes that the organic movement uses that might be beneficial for overall farming? Yes, but then, of course, I'm not a farmer and I have not a real clue as to that. But, I think that if you can find ways to cut down on the number of toxic inputs, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's kind of a... When I thought about it, I would rather have a conversation about getting more fruits and vegetables on our plate than having to fight about whether those are organic vegetables or not.
Yes, but how do you even do that? I mean, I read an estimate one time. This was probably like 2007-8 that said we'd have to pay people to get them to eat more fruits and vegetables. Now, maybe that's not a bad idea. I mean, we do subsidize a lot of the food supply in various ways, including the consumer as well. So, Maybe, is there a tax write-off if you eat kale or, you
There
know
we
what I
go.
mean?
Now we found, well, the people that eat kale are in the group that need a tax write-off. So I don't know that that's going to be,
That's a good point.
that'll be a financial positive, but I don't know that it'll add to our nutritional needs. But I mean, you start to see this conversation beginning. First, they're going after soda and Snap. That they're not, and if there's states that are going to outlaw the use of SNAP funds for buying soda. And you can take whatever position you want on that. But the reality is that these incomes still have these families have other forms of income besides SNAP. And so if they're not allowed to buy the soda with their SNAP money, they can take the money out of their pocket and spend it. Money's fungible; it can go in any one of the pockets you want. So that's just kind of a silly thing. But that you're going to see a big fight over that in the next few months, and then the next fight will be to follow. Will be, well, if now that we've got rid of the bad food, maybe we should find some way to encourage the good foods. Literally a carrot stick conversation. I would favor, I really hate to keep using that line. Let's go more with the carrots if we want them to eat carrots, and and provide a discount for buying fruits and vegetables, rather than a surcharge for buying candy and soda. And the funny thing about it is when they look at SNAP beneficiaries compared to other American families, they're essentially identical. SNAP families buy essentially the same food that families that are not on SNAP benefits do.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I will say, to return to their article as we wrap up here, the one thing I find bothersome about the whole organic craze, which is, a couple decades old at this point, in the US anyway, is that it drives up the price that I have to pay for stuff that I feed my kids, which is frustrating, So I don't think there's anything, terribly evil about organic food or anything, but, like to get my kids to eat vegetables, you can buy little purees in pouches. They're super convenient. They're nutritious. It's a great way to get your kids to eat them. But without exception, everyone non-GMO, organic, USDA certified, blah, blah, blah. And as a result of that, each pouch is like an extra $1.25 or something, depending on where you shop.
It's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, well, and all I was going to say is, right, the same people, Casey and Callie Means, Kennedy, all of the, this cohort of wellness champions, they don't seem to care about that, interestingly, right? They care about money in medicine and in public health when it comes to their competitors, the pharmaceutical industry and so forth. But with that, I never hear them talk about, depriving poor children of adequate nutrition with your overpriced organic products.
Got it. That's an interesting, because that's an interesting point that I had not thought about, because, my child rearing, thank God, is way in the rearview mirror. No offense, Michael and Nick. But, there is a significant level of convenience to those pouches. That's probably as equal sale item to it as the organic quality of the food. And the fact that they're raising the price based on convenience means that they're looking at a different niche market, and that market is going to definitely be driven by the non-GMO foods. Interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but again, it gets to this real dilemma that I think we're going to see as the politics turns to food as medicine, and that's a great example of, to make the comparison to pharmaceuticals, a brand name product, and there's no generic equivalent that you can purchase.
Well, there is a generic, but it's the same price, and it's oftentimes if you buy the Costco brand, for example, it's the same thing. It's right. Just a different label slapped on it,
I got it. Well, and on the other hand, for the entrepreneurs out there, I see an opening for,
yeah.
factory farm pouches.
Do it, baby. Market it that way. Do it. Do it. Factory farm veggie pouches for people like Cameron. Well, okay, final question here. But when we talk about food as medicine, what do you think of that? I like the way I tend to think of it is when I eat well, I feel better and I don't need medicine over the long term. But I don't think of, an apple or a steak as medicine. I think that kind of a silly way to think about it. What do you say?
No, food is not medicine. Food is part of a healthy lifestyle. And, I think there's some things that I've written in the last week or so that maybe we'll wind up discussing down the line where food as medicine is really too reductive. It's really just taking out one component of that entire lifestyle. When you start looking at people with healthy diets, you also find they're exercising, they're not smoking, they're not drinking as much. There's any number of other behaviors that they evidence in addition to eating that allows them to hang around.
Very good. Well, there you have it. Practical advice that you probably already knew. I think most of the advice that you get these days you already knew, but for some reason we like to hear it over and over from different people.
Well, I think while we ignored it from our mothers, there is no reason not to continue to ignore it from us.
Well said. Well said. You didn't listen to your mom, so now you got to listen to Dr. Chuck say say the same thing. Don't smoke, don't drink too much, eat a balanced diet.
Watch the 3-meal treats.
Yeah.
And, I guess we should start talking about brush often with Crest now that fluoride is appearing from the water supply.
What a world we live in, man. It's just oh my goodness. I couldn't have predicted this 10 years ago. Anyways, okay, well, go read this article. If you're not familiar with the issue, and I know there are a lot of people that are just kind of getting their feet wet on, food safety and agriculture. So article again, Organic, in quotes, Agriculture, the $52 billion hoax. That's by Drs. Henry Miller and Kathleen Heffron at acsh.org. If you click the subscribe tab up top and punch in your email address, we'll send you the stories that we publish. You'll get them in your inbox. The ones you read the most are the ones we usually talk about here. So we want you to show up informed. So go ahead and do that. Follow us on social media. It's at acsh.org. I'm at Cam J. English. Chuck is available by email. Shoot us emails. We'll get them to him, and he will respond within 4 to 6 business days or whenever he can. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.